All right, welcome back to the Copake Veterinary Ledger Podcast, where we break down financial, tax, and strategic decisions that matter most, to your veterinary practice. Excited for today. And we have Tyler, Copake Veterinary Hospital. Tyler, talk us through, we're coming up on almost 2 years of practice ownership here, right?
Right.
That's a fast 2 years. What got you into it? Where are you now? Tell us a little bit more about you and the practice.
Well, I like to kind of joke that there's some truth to it, that was a fairly reluctant practice owner and buyer. I had gotten into it, and March of 24 is the actual day in which we purchased it. I'd gotten into it, sort of fell into it. For years, I'd worked for a practice, and I had switched over to another practice locally here, had been kind of seeking out partnership. I always thought that if I was going to own a place, I would, want to partner up with somebody who, I knew and trusted. And it was sort of a shock corporate sale that kind of left everybody there reeling. That then, with a difficult transition, that kind of led me to this opportunity. And the practice itself was a practice I was aware of. It's relatively local to where I live. And kind of knowing that, I wanted to be able to, set the tone, believe in the product and of what we were putting forward, and just sort of also recognizing that I had to change because the trajectory of that practice I was at was not necessarily going in the right direction. And an old friend and mentor had once told me, he's like, listen, if you want to own the product, if you want to own kind of your workspace and the kind of philosophically how it's run, as well as the tone that's set, it's like, unfortunately, well, you actually have to own it in order to really do it. And I think through the years, I'd always try to influence as an associate, positive work environment, obviously, trying to put forward great patient care as well as client care. But when it came right down to, setting the tone, I think he was right. You do kind of have to literally own the practice. So that's how I came into it. And a year and a half has gone by incredibly quickly. And most days, I think I'm very happy that I did it. And even those days where it's like, they're actually really few and far between. And I think I'm, very privileged to have kind of purchased a practice that had a good team in place, obviously have had good mentorship and also, mentorship as well as just, friends to call, and also some good ideas of who I should also bring onto my team to sort of help make it as fluid and, I don't want to say stress-free, but less stressful than it would otherwise be, had it been a different circumstance.
No, I was going to say, talk about setting the tone. I mean, you came in and acquired a very good asset. And then within, like you said, less than 24 months, the tone that you're setting has been incredible. And it speaks to the incremental growth that you've had. Has there been one or two things that when you came in day one and said, hey, I need to do this? It's not just make it mine, but to get that staff buy-in, not as immediately, but, to get the staff buy-in as quick as you could to see the exponential growth that you're having here.
I think really they're just basically providing, a pretty simple vision. Understanding that, the approach had to be, and without kind of diving too deep into the history of the practice, realistically, part of what they just simply needed was, a vet to be there and to kind of take on some of the caseload, and understanding very simple, I sometimes joke that I'm just a simple country boy from Vermont, which is somewhat true, but also really recognizing that being able to focus on just a couple of things at a given time, it helps, I think, helped in the transition, not only for myself, but also from a staffing standpoint. So, Jharid, to answer your question directly, I think one, just being present and being a vet was very useful. And also, quite frankly, I think there was a couple things that it was just some low hanging fruit. I think making sure that we're doing some of those very simple, like staff evaluations, staff, entrance interviews, getting a simple sense of the goings on of the practice, as well as kind of the mindset of the staff at that time. So I think those things, being present, listening, and some of those very basic management things have helped ease a transition.
So I think you and I started at Granite Peak about the same time. So I've loved watching your growth. And I think part of why you do it so well is that everything seems so intentional, right? I feel like, and we're not there for the day to day, but you're not making these knee jerk reactions. You're not making big sweeping changes. Is that kind of always how you've been, or were you like things in the back of your mind, like, oh, I wouldn't do it that way? Or is it the mentorship? Where are you getting these like thoughtful ideas that you're putting forth?
Good question. I think part sort of based upon, I think in previous practices, I mean, some even as an associate, seeing what's worked, also, and possibly more importantly, seeing what has not worked and has kind of led to downfall of previous places that I've worked. That's been very helpful. I mean, there were a number of low hanging fruit things too. Most notably, people should probably pay for their services when they leave as opposed to just getting a bill. So there were definitely some things some part of it I'd like to think on simple common sense, as well as I think just sort of continuing on with the philosophy that I've carried, and managing my personal finance and other things to up to this point. You might be not sparking. Sorry.
Wouldn't be event related, right? Without a cat walking by or a dog barking.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure the cat can show up over my shoulder here at any moment. But yeah, I don't know if that is a real direct way to answer your questions, but I mean, because I came into this with really no management experience. I do credit my wife, who is the silent partner here, who is a vet. She's a lab animal veterinarian, and more or less she has kind of had this kind of meteoric rise in her career, just sort of mainly in people managing and operations. So, I mean, she is a silent partner who's the sounding board, the person listening, as well as just, providing some structure as we've gone forward.
So important.
You said you learned a lot in past experiences to get you to your current experience, right? So we always want to, not repeat some of those things you've seen. You said you saw some bad stuff. What's one thing that, you experienced in your prior life where you say, hey, once this thing is mine, we're never doing this practice. We'll never see this X, whatever it is.
Well, I mean, I think fundamentally, I mentioned one, you should probably have people pay at the time of service, like that's it, and not let your accounts receivable get too high. I think, that's very low hanging fruit. I mean, I think for me, and what I've seen is sort of the, this is maybe more abstract in a way, but certainly not trying to address issues very directly, whether that's with the client or whether that's with staff members, having very open and frank conversations at points. I mean, I do sometimes maybe consider myself a Band-Aid ripper offer, and I don't know if that's always a good thing. And that might be, and it's not because I'm, running around the practice looking for, little things to like start ripping Band-Aids off, but as they pertain to kind of, the overarching goal of having people that are openly communicating with each other. Maybe not, we don't have to be best friends at work, but we have to be able to work together, openly communicate. And so any kind of, side conversations for things that are just, spiraling into, larger, snowballs rolling down the hill that at some point could really derail things. I think, directly addressing either observations that I have of things that are kind of, not individual things, but certainly patterns of behavior or patterns that we see, addressing them very directly and fairly acutely before they turn into something larger has been something that I've really tried to make a point of doing it since buying practice.
That's not always easy, right? Ooh.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not. And I mean, there's definitely some of those days where I'm like, well, what did I get myself into? Are days where you've got to have one of those conversations. And it's just, there's never really a good time for it, just like in life. I mean, most things come up when it's, most bad things come up when, it's like the last thing you need. But that's been kind of, if I was asked to have one thing above and beyond some very simple kind of like tweaking of the logistics of how appointments flow, how we collect payment and when we collect payment, that's kind of been the biggest thing, as well as to try to more clearly define roles for people within the practice, particularly with those that have some managerial responsibilities, trying to make it, very clear, like, okay, these are your buckets, or this is your bucket, this is your bucket, and this is yours. And there's always carryover between those, but to really try to empower, give very clear buckets, as well as to empower people to feel like they should be having direct conversations.
Because you are identifying it as a low-hanging fruit, like the discounting, the no to low or bad, poor collection policies and procedures that maybe a prior owner had and established in practice. We see that a lot with potential owners where it's now theirs and they're saying, oh, prior owner did it, I got to do it. I got to keep to that practice. What was your philosophy? Probably more like you just said, rip the Band-Aid off and, hey, this is my ownership. This is how we're going to do it. But was there staff pushback? Was there clientele pushback? Were you concerned by that at all? Or you just said, hey, I spent a bunch of money to buy this thing. I got to make money to, return investment.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a couple of difficult conversations. Mainly, I think the staff was really on board. I mean, I think that was I think the staff generally was on board. I mean, the front desk, they happen to be all gals in my practice. Obviously, they sort of got some pushback from people. But at the end of the day, I mean, a big reason to do that was specifically to sort of save trouble on the back end of like now having to have a team of people chasing down money that was, owed to the practice, 6 to 12 months ago. So yes, there was a negative part of that, but there was also some people were like, oh, thank God, there's going to be fewer invoices to mail out. And client pushback, I mean, yeah, Jharid, I mean, I guess there's always a little bit of that, but in something as simple as that, I mean, it's industry standard really these days. At least that's my impression. You guys probably know better just because, interact with a lot more veterinarians, but yeah, always a little bit of that fear. But I mean, realizing that it is something that can really, truly tank a hospital, chasing down money as well as just being able to pay your bills. It wasn't that hard of a decision for me. You know what I mean? And I was willing to take that one on the chest. Yeah.
Understood. On those lines, close March of 2024. When did you make the decision? Hey, we got to look at, pricing and maybe increase some pricing. We got to look at our staff and maybe increase, staff compensation. Did you make it yours for a few months and then try to, make some tweaks and changes to those big ticket items?
Yeah. I mean, some of the price increases had to come pretty quick or soon thereafter. I mean, I think that again, and it's not to discredit the former owners, I think they were worried about some client pushback. And so therefore there were some charges, and part of the history was that the practice was really truly struggling, and its longevity and survival was not guaranteed. In fact, I would say it was quite the opposite. I had to make some price increases, some fairly substantial, particularly with surgeries. And so some of those changes happened within the first month or so. Others were kind of evaluated about 6 months in.
Okay, so we've talked about all the good you've done, right? Any decisions you made that you pivoted on or thought like, whoops?
That's a good question.
I was going to say, because if you had 9, I probably had like 6 from just last week. So you chime in with some of mine if we need to.
Yeah, no, wow. I mean, I come across being very arrogant if I have nothing to kind of.
You need us to know.
No, there have been some. Yeah, no, please. I mean, please. I think that some of the Band-Aid ripping off was probably, there was 1 or 2 circumstances where maybe a lighter touch could have been accomplished the same objective, but nothing kind of leading to some, critical failure. Oh boy.
Didn't you have wood paneling at some point, right?
Well, yeah, but we've been working through it.
Right. So
I think part of my difficulty in struggling to come up with something is just that I don't feel like I've done altogether that much. I mean, I think that we've, and that's sort of minimizing a lot of changes within the practice. Yeah. But I mean, again, a lot of these decisions have been low hanging fruit. So, I mean, some of the decisions, and just philosophically coming at it, that realizing that if we're taking good care of clients, we will be successful. And I do feel very strongly about that. Part of taking care of clients, of course, taking good care of their pets. So outside of that, and some of those, basic capital expenditures that I've made, I mean, again, a lot of that low hanging fruit, like anesthetic machines or anesthetic monitoring machines, redoing exam rooms that were, very functional, but needed a touch up, nothing really that has been super controversial, but it's only because, again, still kind of plucking some low-hanging fruit. And fortunately, the practice has been successful enough to be able to sort of pay for those things. So nothing that I've done has been, overextending myself. So please give me some other ideas.
No, I think all of that. I think you were totally discrediting yourself. Because you just said, this practice was on its way out, right? And now you are thriving and you've made some really smart choices that are really showing up for you, right? Like the clients are still there, the staff loves you, all of these things are totally things that you have made happen. And so you've done really well. And if you haven't made any mistakes, great. Something will come.
I'm sure I have. I wish my staff were here too. Yeah.
We'll have a
No, I mean,
follow-up with them, right?
yeah. No, I mean, of course, I think sometimes some of the definition of defining of some of these buckets, particularly in the two gals that do most of the kind of the clinic coordinators at this point, certainly there have been, of course, missteps of like maybe not needing to go back and sort of revise or add to kind of the discussion of who does what and when. But outside of other things where, just sort of like I said, I was going to do staff evaluations in January. I think it was March by the time we got them done. Things like that just more came down to the timing of things and wishing to have been, a little bit more timely in them. Yeah, and some of these, better defining things as they come up of who's responsible for what by when. Outside some of those things, I mean, a lot of it I still stand by, like kind of low hanging fruit. I mean, we are now AHA certified. That was a big thing. I don't regret it. We're VMG members too. That's been something that is starting to sort of bear some fruit relative to getting placed in a group. So I think there's some bigger decisions that, maybe a year from now we'll flush out some things. There's like, maybe we could have done that a little bit differently. And the other thing, I guess, I think I could have started and dove in maybe with marketing a little bit better sooner. That's something that's sort of come to a front now that we're sort of obviously, seeing across the board. I mean, vet visits have been going down now for, over a year, I believe. We've not really been affected by that because of just such a backlog. But had I done this again and just been thinking a little bit more strategically about that and not getting so stuck in the day-to-day of like, wow, the patients just keep coming, I probably would have started with a better marketing plan 6 months ago, now that we're kind of going into a slower time.
Yeah, we got something. We squeezed something out.
We got something. All right. And,
you had to like talk yourself into it.
I had to talk. Sorry for the 10-minute answer for like, really could have been 30 seconds.
Choose to get back to positivity. What are you most excited for? Wish you like away these next 12 months in front of you. What changes or additions, enhancements are you adding at the practice that you're most excited to roll out?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what I'm kind of excited, kind of also dreading it. I think we're going to be changing our PIMS. We're currently using Cornerstone, and I mean, it's obviously very functional, but looking for something that's just a little bit more modern and hopefully a little bit more user-friendly. I think part of that would be, online booking appointments, which I know probably like so many people are doing that already. We just sort of engaged in trying to do that and just having a little bit difficulty with the integration with Cornerstone specifically. That a new PIMS is certainly on the horizon. I think have dabbled with the thinking of doing some wellness plans and sort of dabbled a little bit into that. Now that we have everybody paying at the time of service, now we're talking about wellness plans, but I do think that there could be a time and a place for that. And also, I mean, just to sort of plug, being part of a VMG group, it's not really meant to be an advertisement for them. Obviously, it's your podcast. But I think there are a couple meetings coming up that, even after one meeting, it's pretty great. It's kind of great to sit in a room with other people, particularly with the diversity of thought, both, regionally and also age group. I mean, there are certainly things that I wouldn't consider myself crusty and old school just yet. But yeah, being in a room with some, pretty young, vibrant, and I would also plug very brave practice owners to be doing it at the age of, 30 with young children and whatnot. Certainly a hell of a lot more brave than I am or was. Yeah, there's fantastic diversity of thought in that room. So I certainly look forward to continuing to dig there. So I think between those meetings as well as, updating our PIMS, I think that's probably going to be a big enough bite to chew.
I say, hey, plug away. If anyone at VMG's listening, let's get a show sponsorship. That sounds outstanding.
Hey, no, listen, just to plug you guys. I was sitting in the room, and people were talking about accountants, and I'd say, I think there's 4 or 5 other people who are using you guys and this is without any, solicitation. So you guys are, until you write your name came up several times in our group as far as people who are seeking out, an accounting firm. So
no, I think it's incredible. I'm a big believer in that, because not just for the whole buying group and dollars saved there, but especially like you said, with revenue growth concerns, margin erosion, whatever you want to do, the collaboration that you can have in a team setting where you have practices of all different shapes and sizes, different geographies, and have really meaningful conversations. And what I think to be probably similar pain points here coming up over the next, 6 to 12 months that we're seeing and feeling it as well during all our, year-end conversations, is like that September, October, November, practice owners felt the revenue-wise. And now it's not just you, it's not an isolated issue, it's a big picture. So big believer in the collaboration. I think they do an outstanding job at identifying good groups for information share.
yeah.
Before we wrap, I have one more question, because you mentioned on practice management software, that's usually a bear of an undertaking to change over. What went into the thought process? You don't have to share who you're going with if you don't want to, but what stood out for the platform that they were utilizing? Maybe another show sponsorship coming up here based on how you respond. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, Jharid, the short answer is we haven't decided yet. I mean, I think that we haven't decided which direction to go yet. I mean, we've narrowed it down. I mean, I think we're going web-based just because that's what
Sure.
everybody who changes is going more of web-based. And the process that we're kind of following at our practice is the very modern, 2.5 foot by 3 foot piece of paper that's right outside the staff lounge. That's like write down everything like you want. Like, so everything from our LVTs to our front desk to our doctors, write down, the list of things that we would like it to do better. And then I think our next practice meeting, which is coming up in the next week or so, part of that will be distilling that down into the wants versus the needs. And then we'll sort of draft a document, which, we can sort of provide for those, those various providers to sort of tell us, to see if we have alignment in what we're looking for. So I don't want to say I've crowdsourced it, because it's only really my staff, but like just getting a sense of what are our wants and what are our needs, and then sort of drafting a document to some of the companies to determine if they're aligned.
See if you can point out deal breakers too, right? Like which ones we have. This would totally throw us off. So yeah, I think that's great. I write pros and cons list is always a good idea.
For sure. Yeah.
Can't go wrong with old school. The girl who really loved Cornerstone. It's okay. Showing my age.
Now it's functional. I still can't make an invoice though. Like I can't. If somebody asked me to check
What
them
do you
out,
want from it? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we can do better.
Yeah, no, I think for us, it is certainly the online booking. I mean, everybody that I've talked to, it's like, that's a no-brainer. And even I believe some of the modern ones, I mean, just relative to, I'm trying to, and have really loved some of the simple AI things like your AI Scribe or VetRec, which is the one that I use just as far as the time savers. So I've really benefited from it. I've certainly tried to encourage my associates to think about this as being how beneficial it can be to utilize AI in that manner. So, I mean, having one that really is utilizing some of that modern technology, not just for the sake of using technology, but hopefully in the sake of saving us time, that's kind of the direction that I'm sort of favoring.
Good job.
Perfect. Well, hey, Tyler, I really appreciate you having on the podcast. This episode will launch right around the holiday season. So happy holidays to you and your family, and look forward to getting a front row seat to watch your continued successes at the practice.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Happy holidays.